thank you, Governor. Ryan and Candace Swartz, Harbor Beach, Michigan. We drove 12 hours to see you today, actually.
Oh, man, God bless you.
So with that, two questions, if I may. With our out-of-control spending and our seemingly endless checkbook to Ukraine, seems like we're outspending our European allies about 5 to 1. What's your administration going to do to hold our European allies, let them pay their fair share?
Do you want to do the second?
Yes, second one also. Gun violence seems to be rampant in this country, especially in liberal anti-gun cities. That's why Chicago is so safe. Okay. With that, it seems like it's already illegal to bring a gun into a school, to shoot an innocent child. What's your administration going to do to protect our Second Amendment rights, showing that gun laws really don't seem to keep the guns out of the criminals' hands?
Great questions, thank you. So first, our European allies. We are going to say, so look, NATO, after World War II, was done because they wanted to keep the Americans in Europe, they wanted to keep the Germans down, and they wanted the Soviets out. And so that's what developed in kind of the post-World War II order, Cold War, all that. And, you know, all the NATO allies were 100% united. We didn't want the Soviets coming past Eastern Europe, and we obviously wanted Germany to basically be kept in check. Well, now we're in a different situation, and those NATO allies don't necessarily see eye to eye with us about our foremost threat, which is China. You have some, like the Brits and the Poles, they get it, and I think that they're with us on that, but you have others like France and Germany that they think being more friendly with Xi is the right way to go, that China doesn't really represent a threat. So what I would do as president is say, all NATO allies need to do 2.5% of GDP for defense. We can't underwrite security for all of Europe while they don't necessarily share our interests in terms of our posture in the Pacific, which is the most important threat we're going to face as an American. So they need to do a lot more, and we need to insist on it. And I will give Trump credit for saying that in 2016. He was right. They're not where they need to be, and they need to do way more than what they've done. Now, on Second Amendment, you know, we just did constitutional carry in Florida. I signed that into law, and so that's something that we respect people. You know, New Hampshire respects Second Amendment rights, very important. I think a couple things. One, you're right, the places that have some of the most onerous restrictions have all this crime being committed, with guns and without guns. And I think part of the reason is look, a criminal, whether it's a typical street criminal or whether it's somebody that's going to go try to shoot up a public place, they think, am I going to get pushback if I'm going in some of these areas? You're not going to go rob someone's house in East Texas because you can get your head blown off if you do that. And people understand that. You go to some of these urban areas and people are basically defenseless if somebody against the bad guys. And I think that that's just the reality. So we're going to obviously protect Second Amendment rights. We will never do, like both this current and the previous administration do, gun control through executive order. They tried to do it in Trump. They tried to do it in Biden with this new rule. I think it's unconstitutional to do it through the agencies. I mean, first of all, a statute I don't think would be, but to just do it unilaterally when you're talking about a Second Amendment right, that does not work. I would also say this, and I think that this is true. You know, you look at some of these troubled youth that get involved with firearms, and they'll take it and they'll try to attack all these people. You know, you used to have in this country, kids would bring a rifle to school. You had wide availability of firearms, and yet you didn't have some of this stuff. And I know the people that don't like Second Amendment are going to blame the firearm, but the reality is something has gone wrong in this society over the last generation. What we've tried to do in Florida is a couple things. So we had the Parkland school massacre the year before I became governor. And so I came in January of 2019. The massacre was February of 2018. And so I got to know a lot of these parents. And I tell you what bugged them was there was just an appalling lack of accountability in the system. And so I came in, one of the first things I did was I removed the sheriff of Broward County, who bungled the whole operation, didn't keep people safe. We got rid. The other thing we did was we got all the recommendations on school safety from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission, and we implemented those and have continued to implement additional recommendations. And so Florida, we've put our money where our mouth is. We've put over $1 billion towards school security. Some of that is hardening school. Some of it is school resource officers. You have, in every public school, you have a school resource officer on campus. And I think that that's really important. We also have something called the Guardian Program, which is voluntary, but it allows staff members to get the appropriate training to then be able to carry concealed on school grounds. Now, people say, oh, teachers should not be doing it. They don't want, no one's forced to do it. I agree, a lot of them don't want to do it, fine. But here's why it's effective. If a school is a guardian school, it doesn't even matter if anybody is actually doing it. Just the fact that some may be doing it, that's going to tell these nut jobs that is not a place that we want to go. So in Florida, we make the schools to be difficult targets. And I think that a lot of people have done a lot of good stuff over there. So that's one thing we do. The other thing we do is we take some of the warning signs seriously. So we've implemented programs where, you know, what really the tragic thing about Parkland was when that shooting happened and the news went out, nobody knew who had done it at this point. And yet if you talk to the people in the community that afternoon, everybody pointed to the guy that did it. They didn't have any evidence. They just knew because this guy was like a ticking time bomb. So I think we need to take some of these really severe mental cases more seriously. I think having no, they don't have insane asylums like they used to. Look, it's a difficult subject because you're talking about a potential commitment of an individual, and there's liberty, but there's also kind of the overall community. And I just think that the line has gone too far to where we just tolerate people that obviously are having difficulty living in society, and we just want to close our eyes and hope that this is not a ticking time bomb. So in Florida, we try to understand those signals and train people to be able to take action when appropriate.